I'm Joel Chasnoff, and welcome to FIDF Live. Today, we are on the extreme eastern border of the Golan Heights in the north of Israel. Now, as you may recall, in the last episode, we were along the northern border with Lebanon. Today, we are along the northern border with Syria and with Jordan, at a point where all three countries actually come together. To help us understand the geography and the challenges of this region, we are with Lieutenant Avi. He is a liaison officer in the IDF specializing in the Golan Heights, working with the United Nations. Lieutenant Avi, tell us what we need to know about where we are right now.
So welcome to the Golan Heights. Well, we're standing now at the southeastern tip of the Golan Heights, and you can see in front of you the Rokad River, where it joins down with the Yarmouk River, exactly at the point where they meet. That is a triangular border between Israel, Syria, and Jordan. We can see here below us the technical fence, which is the security border, and then a bit past that, a couple hundred meters, is the international border between Israel and Syria.
And Lieutenant Avi, why is this region so important strategically to Israel?
So first of all, from a topographical standpoint, you have an amazing view directly into Syria, and even more than that, we have in the southern area of Syria, during the civil war that happened there, you had ISIS forces that really posed a threat to Israel and also to Jordan.
And Lieutenant Avi, we see the UN compound to my left. What is your job as an IDF liaison officer with the UN?
So the UN post that we see behind us is part of UNDOF, which is a UN force stationed between Israel and Syria, and they also have many positions and patrols along both sides of the border. My job is to liaison between the IDF and the UN to coordinate activities or crossings wherever may be necessary.
What are the specific challenges Israel faces in this region?
The challenges are twofold. First of all, you have the Iranian proxies, the presence all along the Syrian border. In addition to that, is following the civil war that happened in Syria, the country is still quite destabilized.
Given the parties involved, including Iran, which doesn't even border Israel, what is the key then to keeping peace in this region?
Well, the key is really identifying mutual interests that Israel has with the different parties and then exploiting them. And then that's also how we try as the liaison to work together with the UN and to coordinate and try to find fields that we can work together in to keep the border as quiet as we can.
And before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be serving in this position?
Well, growing up in Toronto, it really is an honor to represent the IDF within Israel. But more than that, is to have the opportunity to represent Israel to the UN and to all the other international bodies that we work with. In addition to that, there's a challenge of me as a commanding officer to many lone soldiers, young men and women that decide to leave everything to come serve in Israel. And it's amazing that they have now the opportunity to really use the skills that they gain there from different cultures and different languages in their position itself. And me, my soldiers, and our unit as a whole do our utmost to coordinate and to keep the quiet in the region.
Lieutenant Avi, thank you for the insights into this complicated region between Iran, Hezbollah, and of course Syria and Jordan on the border. We realize just how complex it is, and to the extent that you and your soldiers are helping to keep the quiet. Mamash toda rabah. Thank you.
We're on a mission in an armored vehicle. Our goal is to collect ammunitions, weapon parts, weapons, anything that can be used against civilians to cause harm by terrorists. It's something that happens here, it's something that we do often. There is a great risk in doing this. Any of these weapons or people can be used against us or to harm us, but we'd rather put ourselves in harm's way than put any of the civilians in harm's way or anyone's just looking to live their lives.
The Lions of the Jordan Valley know the entire Jordan Valley, inside and out. Unlike other infantry battalions, they specialize in this area of the country specifically and deal with the challenges every single day.
Our battalion operates also on the Jordan border and also inside Judea and Samaria. Our battalion is very unique. First of all, it's a co-ed battalion. Men and women fighting together, eating, laughing, everything together. We capture the same lines all the time. We don't move anywhere, meaning we know every rock, tree, house, every person who lives here. We're very familiar with this area, and that's our strength.
As well as guarding the Jordanian border, a border of peace, The soldiers of the battalion face everyday threats from the Judea and Samaria region, which they also protect.
The terrorism here in our territory is more of an everyday occurrence. Throwing rocks or public disturbances or burning bottles being thrown at our forces or at civilians. And it's our job to stop these things before they turn into an avalanche that just breaks the peace and disturbs everyday life. It's a sensitive area with very high friction between various populations.
As an area with a diverse population, this battalion protects assets important to all cultures. One of these assets sits right on the border between Israel and Jordan, Qasr el-Yahud, the baptism site of Jesus on the Jordan River.
The battalion mission is to guard this area. Behind us, we have the border between Israel and Jordan. We are currently standing in Qasr el-Yahud, a holy place for Jews and Christians. It is a place where Christians come to visit from all around the world. And in between us, we have the Jordan River. Although the potential threats, the IDF's routine is to help maintain the religious beliefs of the people who come to practice.
We're here to guard and bring safety to all the populations in the area, whether it be Jews, Christians, or Muslims.
The people who come to visit this site see a quiet and calm place. This is thanks to the battalion's efforts.
The kind of terrorism we have here is called silent terrorism. It means that even though the area is quiet on the surface, underneath it could mean that a suspect is gathering ammunition in his home to use against Israeli families. It could mean that there's a smuggling happening on the border for weapons used to attack Israeli soldiers. The quiet doesn't mean anything. It just means that we have to be alert and ready to face any danger that could arise.
We have great successes here in this area in the Jordan Valley. But we always need to remember that the threat is silent. It can appear out of nowhere. Sometimes it seems like everything is calm and everything is all right. But we have to be sharp. We have to constantly be looking for it. We have to never let our guard down.
We're in the middle of the Golan Heights. It is absolutely freezing outside, a lot of extreme weather. We're visiting with a platoon of Shiryon tanks. It's a platoon whose job is to be ready. They are the first responders should anything happen over the border, and that border with Syria is just 100 feet away. We're joined with a tank soldier right now. Yona, thanks for joining us. Tell us, what is your mission here on the border?
Our mission on the border is basically to be ready at all times. There are a lot of forces on the other side of the border that want to cause harm to us, that they want to uproot Israel and the state of Israel, Klal Yisrael, and we don't know when they're going to strike, but we want to be ready for when that happens.
To the extent that you can, what are some of the specific threats, the weaponry that you have to be on the lookout for?
If something like that were to happen, or if someone would approach the fence, our job is to jump to the tanks and to kind of meet with the foot soldiers and deal with the situation.
And I have to bring up this weather that we're experiencing right now, bitter cold. Where do you get your strength as a platoon to man this tiny outpost day in and day out?
We get it from our brothers in arms. You know, when we look at the bigger picture, we're here, standing out here. Why? Because we know that we have families and friends, and everyone that we care about is back at home, and because we're here, we're protecting them. And a lot of times people will come and will do things for Chayalim, for soldiers, and will make us feel good. That gives us so much strength to continue going, even in the coldest of weather and everything that we have.
I want to ask about your personal story. What does it mean to you, a lone soldier from New York, serving in the Golan Heights, a few hundred feet away from Syria? What's that like for you?
Well, it's crazy the fact that I'm here. Meaning, in growing up, I never thought that this is where I would be, doing this. But I feel so honored that I have the opportunity to be doing this, to be protecting the greater family of Am Yisrael, that I'm here standing on the border, protecting them, even people who I've never met, because I know that we're all connected, and it's really, really special that I'm able to do this.
The tank soldiers that we just met are actually supported by an infantry unit that serves alongside them. Private Zach is one of those infantry soldiers. We are up here next to this massive fence, which literally is the border with Syria. So Private Zach, give us some scope of exactly where we are and why you guys are here.
We're currently at the Quneitra border crossing between Israel and Syria. The fence you see next to us stretches all the way from the southern point of the border all the way up north to the Mount Hermon. And right here are what's going on right now. There's a UN convoy crossing into Syria, which usually happens a few times a week, whether it's them bringing in food on their side or coming back into our side. We're just part of the job being here to make sure everything goes so well.
And what is the mission of your unit being this close to Syria?
So there's a couple of different things depending on which side of the border. On the one hand, we have different little settlements in different towns in our area that stretches across 25 kilometers on our side. And our main goal, of course, is to maintain the high quality of life and the safety of those living on our side. While on the other side, making sure that Hezbollah and the Syrian army, which continuously tests us every day by coming close to the border, and whether it's sending different shepherds to the border to film us to get information on us, is kept at bay and doesn't come too close and doesn't continue to develop big units here in the south of Syria.
Private Zach, are there any specific threats that you can tell us about, incidents you and your platoon mates have been a part of?
The main threats we face daily are the different hostile terrorist organizations that are continuing to grow in the southern side of Syria, come a little too close to the border, and we get different indications, and that's when we make sure we can be on the scene at all times to make sure they're kept at bay, kept at distance, not causing any trouble.
And what does it mean to you, Private Zach, serving so close to the border in situations that potentially can be life-threatening?
Being one of the people here amongst with all of my other fellow soldiers, being the ones that can really keep the people on this side of the border safe from any enemy and have them reliant on us is really a true privilege to be part of the group that really makes sure to keep the enemy on their side of the border so citizens can live here peacefully.
Well, Private Zach, I want to thank you and your fellow soldiers for all that you do. I can say that personally, this is a part of Israel I have never been to. To stand this close to the border, to see the fence and Syria right behind it, it really reinforces the idea of how vital it is to have soldiers here fighting against the constant threat. These are threats we don't always worry about, but because they are handled and because you are here, it allows the rest of us in Israel to sleep at night.
Right now we are here at one of the launching sites of the Iron Dome in the northern region, and from here we're able to protect the whole northern section of Israel. The mission of the battery in the north area in this region is to provide protection for any threat, whether that be from Lebanon or Syria, and to allow people to continue their daily lives, and also to allow our soldiers in the region to continue their mission. The threat that we're facing in the northern region is longer and more accurate missiles from Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. And this is not like Gaza in the south, where we have shorter range missiles. In the north, it's a completely new ballpark, and the answer to this is the Iron Dome. The state of Israel is surrounded by many different enemies, and our mission as the Iron Dome is to allow the citizens of Israel to feel and be safe as they continue their day-to-day lives, go to school and go to work. And we are here to provide defense for any aerial threat in the northern region. I am the commander of the control center of the Iron Dome, and when we have hundreds of rockets being shot into the country, we have just a few seconds to make decisions. If they are short-range missiles, then we have maybe 1 or 2 seconds. If it's longer-range missiles, maybe we'll have 5 or 10 seconds, which is also not a lot. So me and my team are sitting, looking at the rockets and understanding where the rocket's going to fall. Is it an agricultural field? Is it an army base, a civilized area, schools and homes? Based on all of these facts, we need to make a decision as fast as possible so that we can intercept the missile on time. And these are very fast decisions that we are making, and there's no room for error because these are life or death decisions. In Operation Garden of the Walls, I was a commander of the control center in the south of Israel. And as someone who lives in the south, I felt a really great sense of responsibility. And I knew that every decision that me and my team made was crucial for the safety of the people back at home. My soldiers go through many different difficulties, mentally and physically, whether that be uncertainty or moving from place to place. And I'm very proud of them, and I am here doing it with them. And we know how to put the hardships aside when we need to react to a threat. I was born and raised in San Diego, California, and I decided to come to Israel because I feel a very strong connection to this place and the people. And so I serve here in the Israeli Defense Forces. and my sister serves in the US Air Force. We both grew up on the same values of democracy and freedom, and I truly feel like we are both doing our own part in two separate places, together for the same goal.
We're on top of Mount Hermon, about to get into the most interesting military vehicle I have ever seen. It's a special snowmobile. Let's go. In October 1973, where we are right now, Mount Hermon was attacked by Syrian forces, ushering in the beginning of the Yom Kippur War, a war that will always be remembered in Israel for the tragic number of lives lost, nearly 2,300. Today, Mount Hermon is in Israeli hands. It is the highest point in Israel, 9,200 feet high, and of course it is guarded by IDF soldiers. Today we are going to spend time with soldiers from the unit that stands guard on Mount Hermon, beginning with Sergeant Omer. Sergeant Omer, tell us about the main challenges of guarding this strategic outpost in Israel.
The extreme weather is one challenge that we face here, and as you can see behind me, Syria is right there, and you can't see the fence between Israel and Syria because it doesn't exist. The extreme weather does not allow us to build the fence here. So we as the IDF, we stand here in a lot of strategical points in the Hermon Mountain, and we depend a lot on the observation units and the intelligence units to help us keep this border safe the best way possible.
And just to be clear to the viewers at home, anything green, the green land you see behind us, that is Syria. That's how close it is, and there is no fence. So what is your main mission being up here?
Our main mission is to keep the mountain safe. The Hermon Mountain is a valuable asset to the state of Israel. And we're here in a lot of strategical points of the mountain to keep the border safe and both the civilians and the tourists in the Hermon site safe.
The Hermon Mountain is often referred to as the eyes and ears of Israel. What does that expression mean to you?
So no matter if it's day or night, snow or sun, we are here and we're ready for every scenario.
Given that we are so close to Syria, what are the main threats that you and your unit face?
Well, obviously there are a lot of threats here, but the main three are anti-tank missiles, ground-to-air missiles, and civilians trying to cross the border.
This is the northernmost point in all of Israel. Can you show us where you actually live when you're serving up here on the mountain?
Of course. As you can see, our living quarters are actually inside of the mountain.
Believe it or not, we are inside an elevator in the Hermon Mountain. When you're up here serving, does it feel isolated?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a personal challenge, being isolated here with all your thoughts, all your emotions. And you know, people are going to other missions to keep the site safe, and basically you encounter like five people a day, and it's challenging. It's challenging, and there's no service here, and it's also like.
So you're sort of cut off from the rest of the country when you're serving up here. Hey, how you guys doing? Shurion, nachon, armored. Thank you for your service, guys. This underground outpost, literally inside the Hermon Mountain, was built after the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Today, it is being manned by soldiers from the Armored Corps. I'm with Sergeant Itamar. What is your service like in this isolated location?
It's tough, but this is our mission. We're doing our best.
Keeping Israel's northern border safe is, of course, a cooperative operation, and a vital piece of that operation are the observers. They stand watch over the territory 24/7, looking for threats. I'm with Michal. She is an observer in this unit. And Michal, what is your job up here on the northern border?
My job is to keep the border safe from any people that want to cross, that want to do any harm to us. Basically, we memorize the area by everything, trees, stones, like to the littlest detail to that level. And that helps us to know when something is not right.
Michal, if you do notice something suspicious, what would be the next step?
We will alert the ground force. They will immediately go to the specific area where everything is happening, and they will know what to do. We are their eyes, they are the force that make sure everything is all right.
Michal, one last question. Being so close to Syria with no fence between you, what does it mean to you to be serving here?
It means I need to be trained like extremely well. It means a lot. In every category, we need to be on spot. We need to be every single moment ready to everything that might happen. But we trust ourselves. We train pretty hard and we do it.
Of the many threats that Israel faces here in the north, one of the most imminent is Iran and their desire to establish permanent bases throughout Syrian and Lebanese territory along the northern border. You can't tell right now, but we are actually standing on 10 feet of snow. The extreme weather is but one of the many challenges that IDF soldiers face here as they stand guard in the north. We thank you so much for joining us at our exclusive look at Mount Hermon and the northern border and the soldiers who stand guard 24/7 over the civilians inside of Israel. I'm Joel Chasnoff. I'll see you next time on FIDF Live.